The police found Marcus 3 days later, wandering Highway 52 with no shoes, covered in someone else's blood, repeating the same 4 words over and over. We opened the door. He hasn't spoken since, but I have his phone. And tonight, I'm going to show you exactly what happened in those 72 hours. Because what they found in that building, it's still there, waiting. Before we begin, I want to thank every soul that keeps returning to listen. You've turned whispers into echoes. If you haven't already, subscribe and stay close, because what you're about to hear is one story you won't forget. Story 1. The Door in the Basement. The Kelmore Apartments had been abandoned for 6 years before anyone thought to explore them properly. Urban explorers avoided the place, not because of ghost stories, but because 3 separate crews had gone in and come out refusing to talk about what they'd seen. The building had a reputation, the kind that kept even the bravest away. But Jenna didn't believe in reputations. She believed in content, in views, in the algorithm. Her channel was dying, hemorrhaging subscribers to newer, bolder creators who weren't afraid to push boundaries. So when her friend Darius mentioned the Kelmore, she didn't hesitate. We go in, film whatever's down there, and we're out in an hour, she said, adjusting her chest-mounted camera. Easy content. Darius looked less certain, his camera hanging loose in his grip. Those other crews, though, got scared of rats and shadows, Jenna interrupted. Oh, we're better than that. They entered through a ground-floor window, glass crunching under their boots. The interior was exactly what she'd hoped for. Decay porn at its finest. Peeling wallpaper, collapsed ceilings, graffiti screaming obscenities across water-damaged walls. Jenna's camera ate it up, her commentary bright and energetic. Okay, guys, we are inside the Kelmore Apartments, and already this place is absolutely insane. Jenna. Darius had stopped moving. Do you hear that? She paused, listening. At first, nothing. Then, faint as breathing, a rhythmic thumping from below. Bass heavy, almost like music, but wrong. The tempo was irregular, stuttering. Basement? She asked. Has to be. They found the stairs behind a maintenance door, descending into perfect darkness. Jenna's flashlight carved a tunnel through the black, illuminating concrete steps, slick with something that wasn't water. The thumping grew louder with each step, resolving into something almost recognizable. A heartbeat, maybe, or machinery struggling to function. The basement opened into a sprawling maze of corridors lined with storage units. Most hung open, empty, but at the far end, one door stood closed. Solid metal, no rust, impossibly clean compared to everything around it, and painted across its surface in fresh red paint. Keep closed. The thumping was coming from behind it. We should go, Darius whispered. But Jenna was already moving toward it, camera focused, narrating in hushed excitement. Guys, this is it. This is what those other crews saw. This is why they wouldn't talk. Her hand touched the door handle. It was warm, body warm. Jenna, don't... She pulled it open. The smell hit first. Copper and rot and something sweet like overripe fruit left in summer heat. The room beyond was impossibly large, stretching far beyond where the building's foundations should have ended. And it wasn't empty. Hooks, hundreds of them, dangling from the ceiling on chains that disappeared into darkness above. And hanging from those hooks were pieces, not whole bodies, never whole. Arms still twitching, legs bent at angles that made Darius gag. Torsos opened like flower petals, organs glistening under Jenna's flashlight, and all of it was fresh. Some of it was still bleeding. But worst of all were the ones that were still alive. A woman's head, severed clean at the neck, hung at eye level. Her eyes tracked Jenna's movement. Her mouth worked soundlessly, lips forming words that made no sound. Behind her, a man's torso, split down the middle but somehow still breathing, ribs expanding and contracting in mechanical rhythm. Jenna stumbled backward, camera still rolling, capturing everything. Oh God, oh Jesus Christ. Jenna, run! Darius's scream snapped her into motion. They bolted for the stairs, but behind them came a new sound. Wet, dragging footsteps, multiple sources, moving fast. Jenna risked a glance back. The pieces were moving, arms dragging themselves along the floor with their fingers, legs hopping in grotesque parody of running, and emerging from deeper in that impossible room. Something tall and rail-thin, its body a patchwork of stitched-together parts, face a blank canvas of stretched skin with too many eyes blinking in random patterns. It smiled, or the mouth-shaped hole in its face widened. Same difference. They hit the stairs running, taking them 3 at a time. Behind them, the creature's footsteps were somehow both heavy and light, a contradiction that hurt to think about. Jenna's camera smacked against her chest, still recording, still capturing her gasping breaths and Darius's sobs of terror. They reached the ground floor and sprinted for the window they'd entered through. Jenna went first, throwing herself through the gap, feeling glass teeth tear at her jacket. Darius was right behind her, his scream cut off with a wet crunch. Jenna spun. Through the window, in the darkness of the Kelmore's ground floor, she saw Darius suspended in the air, limbs jerking. The creature stood behind him, too many arms wrapped around his body, pulling in different directions. Jenna, Darius choked out, blood bubbling at his lips. Run! Don't come back. She ran. Miles later, collapsed against a gas station wall, Jenna checked her camera. It had recorded everything, every single second. The footage was perfect, horrifying and perfect, and completely, utterly unusable. She tried to delete it. Her finger hovered over the button for 10 full minutes, but she couldn't, because deep in that footage, in the last frame before she'd stopped recording, she'd seen something. Written on the wall behind where Darius had died, in that same fresh red paint, "Tell them, bring more." Jenna never uploaded the footage, but her camera was stolen 2 weeks later, and 3 months after that, a video appeared online titled "Real Footage from Kelmore Apartments, Not Clickbait." It had 40 million views before YouTube took it down. But by then, 7 different groups had already gone to investigate. Only 3 people came back, and none of them would say what they'd found. That footage still circulates in the dark corners of the internet. I've seen it. I wish I hadn't. But Jenna's story isn't unique. There are places, doors specifically, that should remain closed. This next one, it wasn't even supposed to exist. Story 2. The Door in the Woods. The hiking trail didn't appear on any map. Trevor found it by accident, taking a wrong turn during a solo camping trip in the Cascade foothills. One moment he was following the marked path, the next he was standing before a trail entrance he'd never seen before, despite hiking this area for 15 years. A wooden sign hung crooked at the trailhead. Millbrook Station, 2.3 miles. Trevor had never heard of Millbrook Station. He pulled out his phone, checked his GPS. According to the satellite map, he was standing in the middle of dense forest. No trail, no station, just trees. But the path was real. He could see it winding into the woods, well-maintained, almost manicured. Curiosity pulled him forward. The hike took exactly 47 minutes. Trevor timed it without meaning to, checking his watch obsessively as the forest grew darker despite it being midday. The trees here were wrong. Too tall, trunks too straight, bark too smooth. Like props. Like something that trying to look like a forest, but not quite understanding how forests worked. Millbrook Station materialized suddenly. One moment, just trees. The next, a full platform complete with rusted tracks and a small shelter building. Everything looked old. 1950s maybe. Covered in the kind of decay that spoke of decades of abandonment. Except the tracks were clean. Not a speck of rust. Not a single leaf. Trevor approached slowly, every instinct screaming at him to turn back. But he'd come this far. Might as well look around. The shelter building was unlocked. Inside, a single room with benches along the walls and a ticket booth that still had a faded schedule posted behind filmy glass. Trevor wiped away the grime to read it. Arrivals. 12:47 p.m. daily. Departures. None. Trevor checked his watch. 12:46 p.m. The minute hand clicked over to 12:47, and somewhere in the distance, a train whistle shrieked. He should have run. Every fiber of his being knew he should have run. But his feet stayed planted, eyes locked on the tracks as they began to vibrate. The whistle came again, closer, and then the train was there, erupting from the tree line without any warning, a sleek black engine pulling passenger cars that looked pristine despite the station's decay. The train stopped perfectly aligned with the platform. The doors hissed open. No one got off. Trevor waited, heart hammering. Still nothing, just open doors and darkness inside the cars. He took a step closer, peering into the nearest entrance. The interior was clean, too clean. Red velvet seats arranged in neat rows, brass fixtures gleaming, and sitting in those seats were passengers, dozens of them, hundreds maybe, stretching back through car after car. None of them moved. None of them breathed. Trevor's hand found his phone, raising it to take a picture. Through the screen, he could see them more clearly. The passengers weren't sitting. They were posed, positioned like mannequins, faces frozen in expressions of casual travel, reading newspapers, looking out windows, sleeping. But their skin was wrong, waxy, artificial. Except one. In the back of the first car, a woman sat with her head turned toward the platform, toward Trevor. Her eyes were open, watching, and unlike the others, she was breathing. Shallow, rapid breaths that fogged the window beside her. Her mouth moved. No sound, but Trevor could read the words. "Get on." "No," he said aloud, backing away. The woman's face twisted, frustration flashing across her features. She stood, moving through the car toward the door, with jerky, unnatural movements, like she was learning how to walk. Behind her, other passengers began to move, heads turning, arms lowering newspapers, all of them watching Trevor with glass eyes that reflected no light. "Get on," they all mouthed in unison. "Get on, get on, get on." Trevor ran. Behind him, footsteps echoed on the platform. Dozens of them, moving together in perfect synchronization. The train's whistle screamed again, no longer mechanical, but organic. a throat sound that vibrated in his bones. He crashed through the forest, abandoning the trail, tearing through underbrush that drew blood but didn't slow him. The footsteps pursued, never quite catching up, but never falling behind either. And, beneath it all, a new sound, wheels on tracks, moving parallel to his path. The train was following him through the trees. Trevor burst onto the main hiking trail and kept running, not stopping, until he reached his car miles away. He drove straight to the ranger station, gasping out his story to a patient but skeptical ranger named Carla. "Millbrook Station?" she asked, pulling up maps on her computer. "Never heard of it." "It's there. 2.3 miles from the turnoff at..." Trevor stopped. He couldn't remember where the trail had started. The location had vanished from his mind like water through fingers. Carla spent an hour searching historical records, old maps, geological surveys. Nothing. No station had ever existed in that area. No train tracks had been laid within 50 miles. "Maybe you got dehydrated," she suggested gently. "Saw something that wasn't there." Trevor went home, tried to sleep. Couldn't. Because every time he closed his eyes, he saw those passengers, all of them staring, all of them mouthing the same words. "Get on." 3 days later, he couldn't take it anymore. He had to prove he wasn't crazy. He went back. The trail was exactly where he remembered. The hike took 47 minutes. Millbrook Station waited, exactly as he'd left it, except now the schedule had changed. Arrivals. 12:47 p.m. daily. Departures. 12:47 p.m. Trevor Walsh. His watch read 12:46 p.m. The train arrived on time. The doors opened. The passengers stared at him with their glass eyes, and this time they didn't need to mouth the words, because Trevor understood. He'd always understood. Some invitations aren't optional. He got on. The doors hissed shut behind him. The train pulled away from the station, accelerating into the trees. And Trevor sat in a velvet seat, newspaper in his lap, staring out the window at a forest that grew darker with each passing second. The ranger found his car a week later, still parked at the trailhead. Trevor's phone was on the passenger seat, last photo taken showing a train platform that shouldn't exist. Carla sent search parties into those woods. They found nothing, but 3 members of the search party never made it back to the meeting point. And on their GPS units, recovered later, the last recorded location for all 3 was identical. Millbrook Station, 2.3 miles. Trevor's car still sits in an impound lot. Sometimes park rangers report seeing lights deep in those woods around 12:47 p.m. They don't investigate anymore. But this final story, this is the one that made Marcus break. And after you hear it, you'll understand why. Story 3. The Door in the Wall. Marcus, Lena, and Theo had been friends since college, bound together by shared love of horror movies, urban legends, and the thrill of proving them wrong. They'd explored dozens of supposedly haunted locations, debunking each one with embarrassing ease. Ravenhill Industrial Academy was supposed to be their magnum opus, a sprawling complex of abandoned school buildings with decades of ghost stories attached to it. They broke in just after sunset, climbing through a smashed window on the East Wing's ground floor. The interior matched their expectations. Graffiti-covered walls, collapsed ceilings, evidence of previous explorers everywhere. "This place is supposed to be cursed?" Lena laughed, her flashlight sweeping across a classroom filled with overturned desks. It's just another dead building. They split up to cover more ground, staying in radio contact. Marcus took the gymnasium, Theo the cafeteria, Lena the administrative wing. For the first hour, nothing, just the usual decay and debris. Then Marcus's radio crackled. "Guys, I found something weird." He'd discovered a door in the gymnasium's far wall, not unusual by itself, probably a storage closet or maintenance access. But this door was different, newer. The wood looked fresh, unstained by water damage or graffiti. And it was locked with a deadbolt that gleamed like it had been installed yesterday. Why would someone put a new door in an abandoned building? Marcus wondered aloud, running his fingers along the frame. Behind him, Lena and Theo had arrived, equally puzzled. Maybe squatters, Theo suggested, trying to keep people out of their space? But that didn't make sense. The gym was wide open. Anyone could access it. Why secure this one door? Marcus tried the handle anyway, locked solid. "Leave it," Lena said. "Not worth the trouble." They were turning to leave when they heard it, scratching from behind the door, slow, deliberate, like fingernails dragging across wood from the other side. All three froze. "Hello?" Marcus called. The scratching stopped. Then, muffled and distant, "Help me." A woman's voice, weak, terrified. "Someone's trapped in there," Theo said, already moving toward the door. "We have to—" "Wait." Lena grabbed his arm. "Think about it. Why would someone be locked in there? How would they even survive?" "Does it matter? If someone needs help—" The voice came again, clearer now. "Please. He's coming back. Please let me out." Marcus made the decision. He pulled out his crowbar, wedging it into the door frame. One hard pull, and the lock splintered. The door swung open. The room beyond was impossible. The gymnasium was a single-story building. They'd verified that from outside. But through the doorway they were looking at a descending staircase carved into raw stone, spiraling down into darkness that their flashlights couldn't penetrate. "What the hell?" Lena breathed. From below, the woman's voice. "Thank God. Please hurry. He'll be back soon." "Who?" Marcus shouted down. "Who's coming back?" No answer, just quiet sobbing. They descended. Each step took them deeper into impossibility. They should have hit the ground level within 20 feet, but the stairs kept going. 50 feet, 100. The temperature dropped, their breath fogging, frost forming on the stone walls. The stairs ended in a corridor, not stone anymore, but concrete, institutional, lined with doors that had small windows set at eye level, like a prison or a psychiatric ward. "This isn't real," Theo whispered. "This can't be real." But it was solid under their feet. Real enough. The sobbing came from the last door on the right. Marcus approached, peering through the window. A woman sat huddled in the corner of a small cell, dressed in a hospital gown, arms wrapped around her knees. She looked up as his flashlight found her face. "You came," she said, smiling. "I knew someone would eventually." "Who did this to you?" Marcus asked, already working on the door's lock. "Does it matter? Just get me out." The lock clicked. The door opened. The woman stood, and in the backwash of Marcus's flashlight, they finally saw her clearly. Her smile was too wide. Her eyes were wrong, too far apart, pupils dilated to completely black circles. And when she moved toward them, her joints bent backward, knees reversing, elbows folding in directions that made Lena scream. "Thank you," the woman said, her voice dropping 2 octaves. "Thank you for opening the door." She lunged. Marcus threw himself backward, the crowbar swinging up instinctively. It connected with her face, and where it struck, the flesh split and peeled away like a costume, revealing something underneath that had too many teeth and not enough bone. Run! They bolted back toward the stairs, the thing that had been pretending to be a woman screeching behind them. But ahead, blocking the staircase, stood a figure they hadn't seen on the way down, a man in a dirty janitor's uniform, face hidden by shadows, holding a ring of keys that jangled with each step. "You opened her door," he said, voice flat. "That's unfortunate." More doors along the corridor began to open, not from outside but from within, kicked or shouldered or simply pushed, and from each emerged something that had once been human but wasn't anymore. Some still wore street clothes. Others were naked, their bodies modified with surgical precision into forms that defied anatomy. One walked on hands that had been extended with additional joints. Another's face had been split down the middle and spread wide, creating a flower of flesh with eyes where petals should be. "You shouldn't have opened the door," the janitor continued, stepping aside to let his collection through. "But since you did, you'll have to replace her." Theo didn't wait to hear more. He charged the janitor, shoulder down, hitting him hard enough to send them both tumbling. "Go!" he screamed at Marcus and Lena. They went, racing up the stairs with the sounds of tearing flesh and Theo's screams echoing behind them. The things pursued, their various methods of locomotion creating a cacophony of scraping, slithering, dragging sounds. Marcus and Lena burst through the door into the gymnasium, slamming it behind them. For a moment, silence. Then the door bulged, wood splintering as something massive threw itself against it from the other side. They ran through Ravenhill's corridors, taking random turns, trying to find the exit they'd used to enter. Behind them, the building came alive with sounds, footsteps, screams, laughter that echoed from nowhere and everywhere. Lena went through a doorway first. Marcus was right behind her. The floor collapsed under his feet. He fell into darkness, landing hard on something soft. In the beam of his dropped flashlight, he saw what he'd landed on. Theo, or what was left of Theo. His friend's body had been opened like a book, ribs spread wide, and working inside the cavity were hands, dozens of small child-sized hands, arranging organs in patterns that made Marcus's mind hurt to comprehend. Above him, Lena's voice. "Marcus, grab my hand." He looked up. She was reaching down through the hole, fingers straining. Behind her, silhouettes moved closer. Marcus jumped, caught her hand, felt her pull. But as she dragged him up, he saw her face clearly in his flashlight's beam, saw the wrongness in her smile, saw her eyes too far apart, pupils dilated to black circles. "Gotcha," she said, in that voice that was and wasn't Lena's. Marcus let go, dropped back into the darkness. Better that than whatever was wearing his friend's skin. He crawled through the dark, feeling his way through passages too narrow to be real, pursued by sounds that suggested shapes he couldn't name. Time lost meaning. Hours, maybe, or minutes. Eventually, he found an exit. A loading dock door, hanging open. He stumbled out into dawnlight, ran for the road, flagged down a car. The police found him incoherent, covered in blood that wasn't his, babbling about doors and things that used to be people. They searched Ravenhill for days. Found no stairs leading down from the gymnasium, no corridor with cells, no evidence anyone had been inside the building in months. But they never found Lena or Theo. And Marcus, once he could speak again, only ever repeated 4 words. We opened the door.